Hello everyone, today I'm looking at God of War 3 on the PlayStation 3. Watching the developer documentaries on this game was actually very interesting because they were talking about how they were struggling with the PS3 hardware, how it's doing things that they wanted to do was a little bit harder, and how they had to adapt the whole development process and life cycle of the game. They said it was really difficult for them to essentially make a demo, but when they did and they displayed it at E3, that kind of motivation and the positive feedback from the fans kind of kept them going, which I found really, really interesting. So what's different in God of War 3? Well, the set pieces are a lot larger now. There's just a lot more moving parts, a lot more moving pieces. The bosses end up, taking up the whole screen of the game, because this is where you really are fighting a lot of the gods. For example, when you are fighting Hermes in this game, he's a very interesting fight because he's this god who's super fast, and so Kratos actually has to catch up to him, and they have this big kind of race thing until Kratos can, basically stop him and steal his special Pegasus boots or whatever they're called, which allow Kratos to go fast himself, which is really cool. Again, there's just a lot of stuff going on, and this is carrying on from the cliffhanger of the last game where the Titans are basically Kratos has allowed them to time travel forward in time and lead a rebellion against Zeus in the present, time frame. And so the Titans are climbing Mount Olympus, and it's funny how the alliances kind of change, how basically the Titans are kind of out for themselves, and where there's an opportunity to help Kratos, the Titans refuse it. So even the Titans that Kratos brought kind of betray him. And there's one really cool segment of this game when you actually have to fight Kratos himself, and it's really kind of gross and funny how Kronos' Zits kind of spawn these minions, and you kind of have to go and fight them essentially. And so Kratos in this game, he has a lot more the set pieces are just really amazing. And what was powerful with next-gen graphics, the amount of things to be on screen, the amount of computing power to be going on, there's just a lot more stuff that's happening. And so with Kronos, actually killing Kronos, putting your sword in his eye, that's a very memorable fight. And in fact, the guy who literally designed it was, quoted saying, I want that to be something that people take away from God of War 3. That's going to be this huge, huge thing. So again, in this game, they talk about how long it takes them to even model the characters. What was taking in a couple weeks now was the processing power was taking like a couple months. They could do every pore on the character's face, and so that really kind of not really delayed the game, but made things a lot more difficult, and put things into context how hard it is to make a game now, just because the hardware and software available is just so much more. Fundamentally, the gameplay is more or less the same as it was in God of War 1. You're going to use your combos to take on hordes of enemies. You're going to get a series of different sub-weapons, and in this case, actually different weapons altogether, where you can do different combos with them. You also get other ranged weapons like a bow and arrow and other things like that, and other weapons that act as completely new weapons and new designs. The blades of Hades and these other green blades, I forget what they're called. And it's kind of cool how you can choose to upgrade a certain weapon. So if you get a certain weapon you really like it, you can put your points towards that one or something else that suits your fancy. This is kind of the last one in the main God of War series, so they kind of knew Kratos had to take on all the gods. So as I said, Hermes is one of the gods you're taking on. Of course, the big ultimate fight with Zeus has to take place, where basically Kratos just punches him over and over again until he gets all his anger management issues resolved, more or less. But there's also other interesting interactions where you actually fight Hades, the god of the underworld, and as I said, Kronos, who's even a Titan. So this game kind of feels like, this is the final time to really take on and destroy and defeat a lot of other all the whole pantheon. There's even a fight where Kratos fights Hercules, and there's a very cool weapon that Kratos gets where it's Hercules' gauntlets. So Kratos has a fist fighting technique in this game, which is also very different. What's also revealed, though, is kind of maybe not super surprising, is that Kratos is one of the half sons or sons of Zeus, along with Hercules. And so, of course, when you beat him, or when you actually meet Hercules, they call themselves brother, and it's this really cool scene that I didn't really expect. And so, basically, by the end of the game, it's implied that you've kind of killed all the gods of Olympus, and then you're kind of wondering exactly where Athena's loyalties lie and what exactly she wanted to do. And it's pretty interesting too how Athena is going to appear in the next God of War 4, which I mean, it's just called God of War. And where she's still kind of a present character even after the events of this game. I guess something I just really want to comment on that I thought was really, really interesting, and you can really see as the aspect for the next God of War game, is that there's this one section near the end where you basically are paired with this girl who I believe is Pandora, even though Pandora's box is like a thing in the first game. I'm not sure what exactly they did there, but in any case, you kind of have this little moment where Kratos has someone in his care for once, and suddenly he has to kind of act like a dad. And even though it's a daughter, that kind of energy and that kind of relationship that we would see would take place in the God of War 4, where Kratos essentially has a son and he has to safeguard his son and basically teach him, and that kind of whole relationship that I honestly really like from the new God of War games kind of shines through a little bit in God of War 3. Of course, it's a very short-lived part, and Kratos really doesn't change his attitude. There's still other people where he'll be cruel to the scientists who invent the items. And I think one thing that really got me is that he had this slave girl basically hold this what do you call it, like a switch, or like a one of those switches that goes downward, and he basically has her hold it so he can get through a gate and through a thing, and then you just hear this crunch later, and so basically she just basically is crushed by the switch that Kratos put her under. So again, like, Kratos is not a good guy. He is a very, very bad, cruel person, and it's really funny how he almost spends the rest of the games that now Santa Monica is making to almost redeem himself because he was such like he's an asshole. There's no other way of putting it, Something else I noticed in this game, where they made the quick time events not a lot better, but they made them better in the sense that now sides of the screen will light up to indicate exactly which button you're supposed to press. If it's triangle, the top side of the screen is also going to light up a little bit, so that helps the player kind of make the QTEs just a little bit easier, and it's a subtle thing I noticed that I really appreciated. Anyway, most of the game you spend as Kratos climbing Mount Olympus, taking on the gods. In the opening section, you do start, climbing with the Titans, but you end up, falling to your doom and falling all the way back into the underworld. So you make it all the way back from the underworld to the very top of Mount Olympus, where you can finally have the final fight with Zeus and end the conflict once and for all. And of course, I like the fact that you have this thing that, of course, Kratos is his son, because that's a common thing in Greek mythology, where Zeus rather is defeated by his sons and his children, and that's why he tries to destroy them all the time. Again, this game feels a lot more physical, a lot more violent. There's just more things happening on screen, things moving. It feels a lot more epic in that sense, and I really do kind of appreciate it for that. If I had to choose my favorite of the original trilogy, I would say probably 1, since it has the most interesting story. But in terms of gameplay, I would say 3 is actually the best. 2 is just kind of, average at everything, but this one really feels like a very fun game to play, and it does feel like a final moment. I forgot also there's Queen Hera appears here, and she's kind of more like a cutscene thing where, she more or less ends her life. But yeah, you kind of wrap up all the classical Greek, characters and mythos in this game, which is pretty cool. I do have to talk, though, about the end of the game, because, it is so stupid and tonally off key that I think it's one of the worst endings to any game in any trilogy ever, because the whole point of Pandora was that she is hope. She is this thing that is going to save, the world and Kratos. And, the whole point is to have hope no matter what. And so when Kratos finally, defeats Zeus, It's kind of like all the energy and the blood of the gods has been absorbed into the Blade of Olympus, which was part of Athena's plan all along, or something like that. And so Athena is kind of victorious now, and so she basically has bound Kratos, to this contract where he has to be her servant and her agent of chaos, and now she's the only god. And Kratos' response to that is basically to kill himself. So the very first thing he was planning to do in the very first game, he finally accomplishes by using the Blade of Olympus against himself. And like, I get it, I guess, but the entire theme of this game was that no matter how depraved someone is, no matter how many people they've killed or how many sins they've committed, they can still be redeemed through hope. And Kratos is like, right, I believe in hope, and then kills himself. Like, it's just like, what? No, that's not the point. It's this completely lame ending, where Kratos has like destroyed the world essentially, and basically he has no one to blame but himself. And it's just this, it's so stupid because the whole theme that they were going for was hope and redemption, and then Kratos is like, yeah, I believe that, and then kills himself. And then, they just kind of retconned the whole thing by saying, oh, well, he lived, I guess. And then we have God of War 4, which is all Norse mythology. So, again, I don't know. The whole thing is just very silly and very stupid to me. I don't know what else to say about it. I just don't like the ending, and I guess story has never been a huge part of it. It had a pretty decent one in the first game, but then really, like, after that, it became kind of derivative, and here it picks up again. But seriously, that ending is just awful, abysmal. I absolutely hate it, despite it. It's not good at all. So anyway, Kratos doesn't learn his lesson. You just kill more and more people, and just try to destroy the world. And one thing I do have to say, though, I do like Kratos' design in this one. He's kind of gone from just being a guy with just like a loincloth on and like two swords to having at least armor. You feel like there is a proper character design and evolution of his character through his reflected in his design. So I do appreciate that. Also, I think the design of Poseidon in this game is really cool. I don't think we've really seen him up until this point, and he has this whole sort of water horse / scorpion thing going on that's really interesting. So I really appreciate that, and also the design of the other gods were not these super generic things that you'd see in like cheesy movies like Clash of the Titans or something. Even Zeus's design is pretty good, how he's always almost ethereal in how he presents himself. And I think I also love Athena's design in this game, how she kind of went from being more human-like to, again, this kind of glowing ethereal figure, and turns out to be more seditious than she was letting on at the beginning, being the god of wisdom. Anyway, I'm really interested to see how this franchise has evolved, how Kratos as a character has evolved, how he's literally chilled out after becoming a father. And I really enjoy, honestly, the new God of Wars. I know that they're kind of movie games and more cinematic pieces, but there is like decent gameplay there. And I just enjoy how Kratos' character has evolved, really. I really don't like these original games, how he's just angry and upset all the time, and suddenly in the new games he now has to deal with this new responsibility of being a father, and you have new comic relief characters. And I think I'll save that for my God of War 4 review, but as fun as this game is, I did just prefer the new ones, honestly, from a personal perspective. But yeah, that's it. See ya.